Garage Gang, it's a Friday night, and your boy Avatar John is in the Bay. And I'll be your driver tonight through this market of fire. Because Bitcoin didn't just dip, it dropped to 88,056 and tapped 87K, slammed into the wall, skidded out sideways, and dragged the entire crypto market into a full-blown drift. TradFi? They're pretending everything's fine. Crypto? It looks like somebody hit the eject button at 180 miles an hour. Before we dive in, smash that like, hit that follow, and share this with the cousin at Thanksgiving who swears Bonk is literally the next Amazon. We love him, but he's not reading the plumbing. All right, buckle up. Tonight's tape wasn't just volatile, it was mechanical failure at high speed. All right, Garage, let's rip the hood open on this machine, because tonight the market isn't just loud, it's lying. On the surface, everything looks calm. Volatility is cheap. The suits keep pointing at the VIX sitting around 15, like that number means the road is smooth and the weather is clear. But under the hood, the engine is coughing, the fuel lines are rattling, and the mechanic is waving his arms like, do not take this thing into turn 3. Let me make this clean. I know everyone watching isn't a broker or a financial advisor, and the suits love to hide behind acronyms because it keeps everyone confused. So here's the real garage breakdown, Tate style. The VIX, it's basically the insurance premium on the whole market. If traders think things are about to get ugly, they buy protection, just like buying insurance before driving into a storm. So when CNN says the VIX is high, what the market is actually screaming is, this car is about to crash. Buckle up. But tonight, with Bitcoin skidding into 87K, repo markets coughing, and liquidity cracking open like a bad weld, the VIX is still sitting there calm, acting like we're on a sunny Sunday drive. That's not calm. That's mispriced fear. That's the driver smiling while smoke pours out from under the hood. Now, let's talk TGA, the Treasury General Account. Suit version, government cash at the Fed. Garage version, when the TGA is stuffed, the government vacuumed money out of the real economy. And right now, the TGA is huge, meaning liquidity has been sucked out of the streets, out of the banks, out of the system, and parked in a vault where nobody can use it. Meanwhile, the RRP, the reverse repo facility, the Fed's emergency parking lot for cash, the liquidity cushion we relied on for 2 years, it's basically empty. So here's the reality, clean and dangerous. The market's fear gauge, VIX, is pretending everything is fine. The government drained liquidity into the TGA. The Fed's safety cushion, RRP, is dry. That combination isn't normal. That combination is a grenade with the pin halfway out. And now we get to the part nobody outside the garage understands. The SRF. Suit version, standing repo facility. Our version, it's the Fed's emergency pawn shop for banks. When banks run low on cash, when deposits fall, when funding dries up, when stress hits, they walk up to the Fed with their safest assets, their treasuries, and say, hold this, I need cash right now. Tonight, banks borrowed $26 billion through the SRF. Banks don't use the SRF because things are fine. They use it because something in the pipes is breaking. That number wasn't a blip. It wasn't decorative. It was a flare gun. The system is telling you liquidity is thin, funding is stressed, the dashboard is cracked, the road conditions are worse than advertised. And that's why tonight's tape feels like a supercar in the rain with bald tires and a driver tapping the brake and the throttle at the same time. This is Gear 1, the engine room, the truth behind the lies. Now let's move to the drivetrain, because the 500 million Bitcoin liquidation nuke didn't happen by accident. Now that we've exposed how broken the engine room is, let's slide under the car and look at the drivetrain, where the torque really lives. Because tonight wasn't just a dip or a correction. Tonight was a drivetrain failure, followed by a rebuild in real time. Bitcoin didn't politely retrace. It got launched through the windshield. A $500 million liquidation wave detonated across the market, and it wasn't evenly distributed. Longs got destroyed. Shorts barely flinched. Price knifed down into the mid 80Ks, scraped 87,000, and for a split second, the entire market looked around like, did the axle just snap? And while that candle was plunging, while retail was panic selling, doom posting, crying in group chats, the whales were calmly walking through the wreckage, picking up coins like they were grabbing scrap metal from a junkyard sale. 2,000 Bitcoin quietly walked off Binance. $365 million in USDC left derivatives venues and disappeared into deep wallets. That's not fear. That's accumulation. That's professionals reloading while amateurs eject. And here's the part the suits always miss. Bitcoin didn't break. Weak hands broke. Because this is exactly how Bitcoin resets torque before a new leg. You slam below the short-term holder cost basis, which tonight sat around 108K. Flush the tourists, clean out the leverage, and rebuild the drivetrain with stronger hands. On-chain supply is screaming the same story. Exchange reserves are at multi-year lows. The float is tight. There is no inventory out there for big players. Public tape screams fear. Backstage metrics whisper shock incoming. Cycle position makes it even cleaner. Bitcoin is in euphoria rollover, not bubble popping. Just the phase where strong hands rotate and tourists get punished. Solana is in capitulation, which is exactly where the largest asymmetrical moves come from. XRP is in fear, which is historically the zone where event-driven squeezes ignite, especially with ETF momentum and corridor expansion on deck. Put that together and what do you get? Bitcoin becomes the flywheel. Alts become the torque amplifiers. Fear becomes the fuel. This wasn't the end of the trend. This was the reset the trend needed. And if you listen closely, the drivetrain is humming again. Deep, low, rebuilding torque under the floorboards, getting ready for the next stretch of open road. This is why we don't trade candles. We trade structure. We trade supply. We trade behavior. And tonight's behavior says the drivetrain didn't break, it got stronger. Now, with the engine screaming and the drivetrain rebuilt, we move to Gear 3, where the headlines, the AI war, and the geopolitical fuse box all start sparking at once. Gear 3, the electrical system. Headlines sparking, AI surging, geopolitics humming. Now that the drivetrain is rebuilt and humming under the floorboards, we climb into the electrical system, the part of the car where every sensor lights up, every wire buzzes, and one bad signal can blow the whole fuse box. Because tonight, the headlines weren't just loud. They were electric. First spark, the regulators. The CFTC dropped a bombshell, opening the door for spot crypto trading on US futures exchanges. Let me tell you what that means in garage language. They just built a new lane for institutional capital to flow onto the track. A clean, regulated on-ramp for real size. More throttle for real money. And at the exact same time, the SEC slammed the brakes on 5x leverage casinos, throttle on legitimacy, brake on degeneracy, flip the wiring, change the behavior. Then comes the AI complex. And brother, the voltage tonight is hot enough to melt steel. NVIDIA threw $2 billion behind Synopsys. That's not a trade. That's not a hedge. That's a signal that the race for compute dominance is accelerating. And the chip war is spilling into every corner of tech. New model launches hit today too, each one hyped with code red energy behind the scenes. Google, OpenAI, Meta, the open source labs. They're not iterating, they're sprinting like the person beside them has a knife. The GPU shortage isn't just a headline. It's the backbone of the next economy being choked by demand. Meanwhile, geopolitical wires are humming like faulty neon lights. Ukraine sends peace signals out one corner of its mouth, while escalation risk spikes out the other. The Indo-Pacific theater is in silent escalation, the kind where you don't hear anything until you hear everything. In the Middle East, oil, power, positioning, every headline is a potential landmine for Monday's open. All of these signals, the policy shifts, the AI race, the GPU stress, the global tension don't exist separately. They're the same electrical system. They feed each other. They amplify each other. They overload the grid together. When headlines look disconnected on the surface, but identical under the wiring, that's when you know something big is forming. Something directional. Something that won't be moved by a meme coin or a tweet. This is when the smart money watches carefully, and the rest of the world scrolls their feed, wondering why the car suddenly feels unstable. And just wait, because the risk suspension tonight is even shakier. And now we drop under the frame and look at the suspension, the part of the car that decides whether you glide through the bumps or flip into a ditch. Because right now, the suspension of this market is being held together by duct tape, wishful thinking, and a prayer whispered by a junior analyst in Goldman's bathroom stall. Look at the conditions. Funding markets shaking, SRF screaming, liquidity choking, and the VIX is still lounging in the mid-teens like it's sipping an iced latte on a beach vacation. That's not stability. That's irresponsible confidence. It's the market selling volatility to manufacture yield. Like a driver flooring it on bald tires, thinking the laws of physics are just suggestions. And the crypto suspension, it didn't hit a bump. It hit a crater. Over $419 million in long liquidations versus roughly $80 million in shorts. That's not a correction. That's longs getting catapulted through the windshield while shorts barely spilled their drinks. And yet, the chassis held. The car didn't total. The drivetrain reset, not collapsed. This is what people don't get. A liquidation flush isn't the end of a market. It's the clearing of dead weight. TradFi rotations made the picture even clearer tonight. Small caps bled out on the concrete. High beta hype names wobbled. Speculative trash got shoved back into the junkyard. And the money that matters? It sprinted toward the things the system can't live without. Power, healthcare, energy infrastructure, AI infrastructure, not the toys, the essentials. That's late cycle behavior. That's the suspension tightening down, removing slack, removing fantasy, removing the dream that everything goes up forever. But it's not bearish. Not yet. Not if you understand the mechanics. It's the market doing what it always does before a pivotal turn. It braces. It shifts weight. It leans into the coming corner. It prepares for the moment where a wrong move sends the whole field into the wall, and a right move launches the leaders down the straight. We are in the moment before the lean, the load, the weight transfer. The suspension is screaming, but it's still holding for now. Now we lift our eyes off the hardware and look at the air itself, because the way the wind hits this machine tonight is just as important as what's happening under the hood. And the narratives out there right now, they're not breezes, they're crosswinds, the kind that shove a race car sideways even when the driver has both hands on the wheel. Let's talk about the macro story first. The headlines say soft landing. Analysts say orderly slowdown. Politicians smile like they know what's coming. But the underlying reality? It feels like hidden recession risk mixed with liquidity crackle, a storm forming just past turn 3 that everybody pretends they don't see because admitting it would set off the alarm. That mismatch, the calm story versus the violent wiring, is the wind buffeting the car down the straight. Now, swing the camera to crypto social flow, because that wind is even more chaotic. Your entire feed tonight is locked on doom. Alts are dead. Memes are gone. Only BTC and ETH survive from here. Sol washed out. XRP finished. But here's the contradiction. Even while the crowd screams apocalypse, the structural wins keep piling up quietly in the background. Spot access approvals, shifts in ETF flows, regulated crypto rails opening, ETH pulling plus 140 million while BTC bleeds, base Solana infrastructure bridges tightening, institutions loading BTC on dips, stablecoins repositioning, devs building, liquidity scouting. That's what I mean by aerodynamics. You've got bearish air blowing over a potentially bullish wing. The wind says panic. The chassis says opportunity. The torque says patience. The narrative says end times. The data says stress reset. And then You look at gaming, AI, Web3, that chatter has stayed weirdly strong even during price weakness. Teo, FET, RNDR, IMX, OpBNB, Ronin, every cycle, these sectors get loud before they get real. The kit looks sexy, even if the wind tunnel data hasn't caught up. And that's exactly how innovation happens, through noise before proof. So what do we do with this? We don't fight the wind. We read it. Narratives don't drive the car, but they push it. They tilt it. They shape how the market leans into the next corner. And right now, the lean is unmistakable. The surface story is fear. The underlying story is positioning. The dominant emotion is panic. The dominant behavior is accumulation. The air says slow down. The data says reload. These crosswinds don't break the car. They reveal the line. And that's exactly where we set up the next section, because now we're heading into Clark's corner. The contradictions that matter, the ones the suits ignore, the ones the garage profits from. Ready when you are, Guru. Say the word. Next. And now we drop into the part of the show where the truth doesn't hide behind narratives, headlines, or macro excuses. The trench. Triple X didn't stroll into Resort's world tonight like a man chasing glory. He walked in with a cool 50 soul. Clean, sharp, intentional, rent paid, mind clear. No fantasies, just execution. The elevator doors open. He steps into that crimson-lit lounge on the private floors, where the carpet has too much cushion. The staff doesn't ask questions, and the air feels like money is supposed to circulate in it. He sits. Laptop opens. 3 screens glow like portals into another universe. Axiom spinning through pattern recognition. Bullx tracking liquidity heat and wallet movement like sonar. Dex screener pulsing with every breath of the Solana underworld. First assignment of the night, the zombies. Bonk, bloody, volatile, pulled back from its glory days, but still alive because the culture refuses to let it die. Huge market cap, massive community, and liquidity deep enough to prove it still matters. With the dog with the hat, a coin that rode the meme wave so hard it cracked, dropped 90%, then stood back up like a cartoon character refusing to stay unconscious, still pulling 9 figures, still pulling believers. SAMO, the elder dog of Solana, 3 years deep. Volume small but loyal, the type of coin that tells you what survives every storm. MYRO, comeback kid energy, a mid-cycle star that exploded, imploded, and now lives in that sweet spot where traders bet on resurrection like it's a sport. Those are your zombies. Old, scarred, still breathing. And Triple X watches them, not because he wants them, but because they tell him whether the crowd is awake or dead. Then he shifts to the newborns. The fresh meat on Solana with nothing but liquidity, hype, and volatility holding them together. XMAS, 3 days old. Seasonal narrative, staking gimmicks, and liquidity that showed up fast. It's the kind of coin that proves memes aren't built, they're summoned. Koi, 4 days old. Gamified staking, art contests, LP locked for 6 months. A coin trying to grow legs before it learns how to flip. SKR, hours old. Pre-launch energy tied to the Solana mobile ecosystem. A baby with a billion token destiny and all the risk in the world. ELIAS, the cautionary tale. 1-day surge from a tragic event narrative, then a collapse that would snap the neck of anyone chasing without due diligence. A reminder that hype is a predator, not a friend. Triple X scans each chart. Volume behavior, liquidity depth, holder concentration, contract flags, mint authority, LP lock, narrative velocity. That's the safe cracker method, not hunting for moonshots, but diagnosing what's real, what's bait, and what's breathing. Then he goes to work, not spraying bets, not aping like a clown, not falling in love with any meme. He moves with discipline, a little position on a zombie waking up, a scalp on a newborn showing early volume confidence, a fade on a chart that's lying, a boost on one that's whispering strength, up, down, in, out, cold, precise, mechanical. 3 hours later, Resort's world is humming underneath him, and the screen shows the truth. The 50 SOL he walked in with is now 87 SOL, or 92 SOL, or whatever you want to set it at tonight, guru. But it sure as hell isn't 50 anymore. Clean, disciplined, no screenshots, no victory laps, just results. And before anyone gets emotional, let me make it clear. None of this is financial advice. This is trench education. This is operational thinking. This is how to study flow, not how to gamble your rent. Triple X doesn't chase hope. He hunts behavior. He respects liquidity. And he walks out the same way he walked in. Calm, composed, unbothered, because the trench doesn't reward hype. It rewards discipline. And tonight, discipline paid. I asked Lulu to take one look at this chaos across the 1 minute, 15 minute, and 1 hour charts for BTC, SOL, and ETH. And the first thing she said was, sometimes the best trade is no trade. The tape today was messy, uneven, and full of fake outs. Tonight wasn't about scalping. Tonight was about not getting your head taken off. Here's her read, simple and clean. Bitcoin showed its teeth already when it flushed to that low near 87K. That was the exhaust pipe scraping the pavement. On the 1 minute time frame, BTC is nothing but trap candles. No rhythm, no pattern worth trusting. The 15 minutes shows it bouncing between roughly 89.2K and 89.6K, but with zero conviction behind the moves. And on the 1 hour, Bitcoin is still pinned under the trigger ribbon, which means momentum is fragile at best. Lulu's line is simple. If BTC loses 88K again, the next magnet is down around 86.6K to 86.2K. But if it can break back above 90.3K with real force, it can breathe again and target the 91K zone. Her words, below 88, danger. Above 90.3, breathing room. Solana held up better than Bitcoin, but it's still wobbling. The 1 minute is choppy nonsense. The 15 minute shows SOL defending that 133.00 to 133.20 zone, and that's the only thing keeping it out of a deeper slide. On the 1 hour, it's sitting just below the trigger ribbon. Not broken, but definitely not driving the bus. For SOL, Lulu says if it loses 133, it slides to 132. And if fear picks up, down toward 130.60. But if it can break and hold above 134.10, momentum shifts back in its favor. Her take, hold 133 or you slide. Break 134 and you're back in the race. Ethereum looks tired. On the 1 minute, it's noise. On the 15 minute, it's just lower high after lower high. And on the 1 hour, ETH is sitting right under the trigger band with sellers leaning into it. It's already tagged the 3,000 level. That's the line she's watching. If ETH loses 3,000, she expects a move to 2,982 or even 2,970. If it breaks above 3,045 with volume, it can shake some of that pressure and drift back toward 3,075. Or as she put it, below 3K, gravity wins. Above 3,045, you can breathe again. And this is the part she wanted me to emphasize. Not every night is a trade night. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is step back and respect the chaos. Tonight the charts weren't trending, they weren't clean, and they weren't directional. They were recovering from a crash. Patience was the sharpest tool in the box. Lulu disclosure. She is not a financial advisor. She is a pig, a very talented pig with excellent instincts, but still a pig. Everything here is educational only. Do your own research and never risk money you can't afford to lose.